My parents told me I didn't deserve to be at my sister's wedding, so I disappeared without a trace. I'm Trina, 28 years old, driving through a rainstorm, leaving my hometown behind. The bridesmaid dress is still in my car, unworn and pristine. My phone won't stop buzzing with family messages, but the emptiness inside me is vast, a wound too deep to name. The words echo in my mind: Trina doesn't deserve to be at her sister's wedding. If you're watching, let me know where you're viewing from and hit that like and subscribe button before we dive into why I chose to vanish on what should have been one of my family's happiest days. The beginning of the divide. I grew up in Mapleton, Indiana, a small town where everyone knows your business and family reputation matters. From my earliest memories, I was always just Catherine's little sister, a footnote to her perfection. Catherine, 5 years my senior, seemed to have been born perfect. With her blonde hair and blue eyes, she was everything I wasn't. My brown hair and hazel eyes took after my mom, but on Catherine, the same features seemed more vibrant. She was valedictorian, homecoming queen, and debate team captain, all while volunteering. My parents, David and Susan Adams, constantly reminded me of the gap between us. "Why can't you be more like your sister?" became the soundtrack of my childhood. They'd compare my grades to hers and my softball bench time to her championship victories. There were rare, precious moments when Catherine and I connected as sisters should. I remember building a sandcastle with her at Lake Michigan when I was 7, laughing for hours. Another time, she skipped a friend's party to read me stories and bring me ginger ale when I had the flu. These glimpses of a normal sisterly relationship made the pain of my parents' comparisons even sharper, like mirages in the desert of my childhood. High school was particularly brutal. With Catherine away at Johns Hopkins on a pre-med track, my parents turned her bedroom into a shrine of her trophies and awards. I, meanwhile, struggled to find my place. Not an athlete or a top student, I discovered graphic design and, for the first time, found something that felt uniquely mine. My art teacher, Mrs. Callahan, was the first adult who saw my potential, telling me I had a unique eye. A journey for self-worth. When I told my parents I wanted to study graphic design in college, my father laughed. "That's not a real degree," he said, comparing it to Catherine saving lives. My mother was more diplomatic, but still discouraged me, saying they wanted something stable and reliable for me. Despite their disapproval, I was accepted into the School of the Art Institute of Chicago with a partial scholarship. Catherine called to congratulate me, and her genuine pride sustained me through my parents' frigid silence. I went to Chicago with their reluctant financial support and vocal disappointment. Every holiday break was the same: questions about when I'd switch majors and reminders of Catherine's achievements. Yet, I still loved my sister. She was the only one who believed I had value beyond comparisons to her. We developed a ritual of monthly video calls where she'd listen to me talk about my design projects and I'd hear about her life in medical school. We found the sisterhood that had eluded us when we lived under the same roof. After graduating, I stayed in Chicago, taking on freelance jobs and building my career from scratch. My tiny studio apartment was all mine, paid for with money I earned creating things I was proud of. My work gradually gained recognition, and I moved to a bigger apartment. I met Marcus at a gallery opening. A sound engineer, he showed a genuine interest in my design work. He came from a family that valued creativity, a stark contrast to my own. I also built a community in Chicago, with friends like Jasmine, a copywriter, who became my closest confidant. The lead up to the wedding. When Catherine got engaged to James, a fellow doctor, our parents were ecstatic. I was genuinely happy for her, and she asked me to be her maid of honor, a public acknowledgement of our special bond. My parents' house was transformed for the engagement party, and I was nervous to meet James. He was kind and treated me with respect, even asking me to consult on his brother's website redesign. Despite this, the night was filled with familiar jabs from relatives and my parents. "Still doing that computer art thing, dear?" a family friend asked. My mother's subtle insults about my boyfriend being just an audio technician also stung. Still, I left feeling cautiously optimistic because Catherine had chosen me. Maybe this wedding would be different. Over the next 6 months, I poured my time and creativity into my role as maid of honor. I designed custom invitations, signage, and programs for free as a gift to my sister. While Catherine loved my work, my mother found it a bit busy, constantly referencing another bride's classic script invitations. I also planned a bachelorette party for Catherine, which was a success, but I still felt like an outsider among her medical professional friends. Still, Catherine made a point to include me, showcasing my work. Dress fittings were another source of stress. My mother's comments about me fluctuating in weight and her worry about me looking unconventional next to Catherine's polished friends chipped away at my confidence. During a family dinner, I overheard my parents whispering about me. My mother said she was worried I might make things less than perfect. My father sighed. Catherine wanted her as maid of honor. Not much we can do now. I slipped away, my cheeks burning with shame and anger. The breaking point. The week of the wedding was a flurry of final preparations. Marcus was set to arrive the day before the ceremony. At the rehearsal dinner, I was seated at the family table, and James's parents, the Clarks, were surprisingly warm and interested in my design work. Trina has always been crafty, my mother cut in, making it clear it wasn't a compliment. I delivered my maid of honor toast from the heart, which made Catherine tear up and whisper, "That was perfect, Trina." "Thank you." After dinner, I stepped outside for a moment of quiet. I overheard my mother and father talking to my Aunt Carol. "There's going to be such a contrast in the photos," my mother said. Catherine and all her accomplished friends, and then Trina. My father added with a chuckle, "Honestly, Trina doesn't deserve to be at her sister's wedding." My mother sighed and mentioned my wrist tattoo, calling it unprofessional. My blood ran cold. The small compass rose tattoo I got to celebrate my first big client felt like a brand of unworthiness. I made it to my car and called Marcus, shaking. "They said I don't deserve to be at my own sister's wedding," I whispered, my voice breaking. He insisted on coming immediately, but I told him no. "I can't do this anymore," I said. "I can't keep pretending that if I just try hard enough, they'll see me as worthy." He told me I didn't owe them my presence. We talked for nearly an hour, and a plan formed in my mind. I would leave. I would stop trying to earn approval that would never come and protect my self-worth. Disappearing. I returned to my parents' house, packed my bags, and wrote a note for Catherine, telling her I loved her but couldn't be there. I also left her a small silver locket with a photo of us as kids. At 2 a.m., I quietly closed the front door, leaving my childhood home behind. As I drove through the dark streets of Mapleton, a strange calm settled over me. I turned off my phone, putting distance between myself and the wedding. After driving for hours, I stopped at a roadside motel. Exhausted, I finally allowed myself to cry, sobbing until there was nothing left. When I woke up a few hours later, the guilt hit me. It was Catherine's wedding day. I turned on my phone and was flooded with missed calls and messages. Catherine's texts were full of worry, while my parents' messages were full of anger and disappointment. I couldn't bear to listen to the voicemails and turned the phone off again. I spent the day in that anonymous room, imagining the ceremony without me. The pain of disappointing my sister was immense. But then I remembered my father's words, "Trina doesn't deserve to be at her sister's wedding." The raw truth of how they saw me. Going back would mean accepting that judgment. I called my friend Jasmine, who affirmed my decision. "You're a person who finally reached her breaking point," she said. "You're protecting yourself." After talking with her, I made a decision. I would drive back to Chicago, to the community I had built for myself. Marcus was waiting for me when I arrived, providing the safety I desperately needed. The next few days were a blur of sleep, tears, and quiet support from friends. My phone remained off, the aftermath too overwhelming to face.